Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Johanna and welcome to my cozy book space. So for today's video, I'm going to be doing the rest of my November wrap up. I read 15 books, so let's get right into it. I forgot to talk about this one novella that was part of like the one night series in my last mid-month wrap up. It was the last book called Rules We Break by Donna Isili. This one I gave it 3 stars to. I completely forgot about this one until I was like planning my wrap up. So this was the last one. This was the last guy in the friend group. His name is Greg and he has a relationship, a workplace romance with his boss named Ivy. This is also a reverse dom sub novella. The smut was really good. It was enjoyable for what it was. Moving on, I read The King's Reluctant Bride by Ella Good. I gave this one 3 stars as well. I really enjoyed it. This is between our hero Thomas and our heroine Penelope. Penelope is basically the daughter of a servant maid and Thomas is the brother to the king. And when Thomas's brother abdicates the throne, Thomas ends up becoming king and therefore their tentative relationship can no longer happen because he is king. They were childhood friends to lovers. Once Thomas becomes king, Penelope can see no way of them being together and Thomas is just super persistent that they can make it work, that she is only one for him. So I really enjoyed it. It was cute for what it was, but my favorite was The King's Horrible Bride by Katie Wilde. I need to read more by Katie Wilde because every single novella that I've read by her, I feel like I've given 4, maybe 4.5 stars, and I just love her writing. Again, if I didn't say this already, I gave it 4 stars. This one is between our hero Maximilian or Max and our heroine Victoria. So I believe that Max is like a king, like he becomes king. Is he king? He's like king of a small country and Victoria is the daughter of a wealthy man and said wealthy man helped Max become what he is today, and part of their agreement was that Victoria would be his betrothed. So it's a arranged marriage, but because Victoria was so young when this deal happened, Max has like completely ignored her and Victoria has literally lived her life trying and being the perfect woman for Max. She always knew that she was going to be the queen. Once Max feels like he is in a good place with his kingdom or whatever, now he goes and looks for Victoria, and the minute he sees her like, you know, grown and a woman, he is instantly like, this is gonna be my wife, like this is my bride. And like his PR team and all of these people are telling him like she's not a good choice, and he's like, well, I'm gonna honor this contract. If it wasn't for her father, like I wouldn't be the man that I am today. Victoria is very like salty with Max because he made her wait for so long, but in Max's point of view is he didn't have time to think about her and he thought because she was so young that she was going to be living her years, you know, experiencing things, etc, etc, but she's always been the one for him, and the minute that he sees her and actually can have something for himself, he takes her. And I just loved it so much. There was so many hot scenes in here. The way that the hero is just so obsessed and in love with the heroine, and it was just so hot. It was so good. I gave it 4 stars. I really loved this one. Anyways, the next one that I read was Bound Together by Mila Crawford. I actually gave this one 2 stars and I DNF'd it at 82%. This one was just absolutely bonkers. I was like, this is so bonkers that I just don't want to keep reading. Like, I just don't want to keep reading. I honestly didn't even know what the fuck was going on. I mean, I did, but it was just so crazy that I was just like, I don't care. This was a series that I wanted to give a shot because I had read The Mask by Mila Crawford and I really enjoyed it. That one wasn't as bonkers. And it's funny because we see the guy, The Mask, in this book and I'm just like, it just didn't hit the same. This one was a little too crazy for me. Will I continue the series? Maybe when I'm looking for novellas. But if they continue to be too bonkers, then I'll probably just end up DNFing them. But I don't know. It was crazy. Do with that what you will. And then after that, I ended up picking up I Spy by Cassie Mint. This is one of her newest novellas. I think her newest one currently. And I gave this one 4 stars. I really love this one. So we have our hero who is a contractor, and we have our heroine who is a student but also an employee of this building that the hero is working on. She has to work under her uncle because she was in a scandal scandal, but she really wasn't in a scandal. Her family is just really like conservative, and she's studying to be like, I think, a fashion designer. Our hero is working on this building, and they kind of like have this like voyeurism relationship where she just is instantly attracted to him. Like they see each other through the window. They have this kind of like fun and flirty little, I wouldn't say banter because they don't really speak to each other, but like they communicate with their eyes, and it's really cute. Obviously it's a novella, it's Cassie Mint, it's very insta love. The spice was really good, and I just really overall enjoyed the relationship. I thought it was really cute, so I gave it 4 stars. I really loved it. After that, I ended up reading another Cassie Mint novella called Shiver Me Timbers. This one I picked up because I realized that I hadn't read it, and this one is part of the Halloween novellas that Cassie Mint had dropped. I give this one 3 stars. I enjoyed it for what it was. We have a very age gap, deceased father's best friend guardian romance, so it has all those tropes, and it was fun. So we have our heroine who works with our hero, and the hero is our heroine's deceased father's best friend, and once she's like older, she realizes that she like has more feelings for him, and once that she is older, he realizes that he's really attracted to her. They run this spooky business on a boat where they like take tourists and tell scary stories, etc, etc. And one night she's like, I've had it, we're gonna go see this new place that we could take our customers to and see if it's scary, and I'm just gonna confess my feelings, and it goes on from there. There was a lot of reluctance for my hero, but once he kind of gets over that, spiciness ensues. It was spooky, but like it wasn't scary. But yeah, I enjoyed it. 3 stars. After that, I ended up picking up Silent Lies by Neville Altage. This one I gave 4 stars to. We have our hero Drago and our heroine Sienna. So Sienna, I believe, is the sister of a previous heroine, and she is basically living in her brother's home. She really doesn't have any obligations or responsibilities. She kind of just goes with the flow. She holds a lot of guilt for what had happened to her sister because her sister had gotten kidnapped. So the novella that has the sister that had gotten kidnapped, that's the sister of the heroine in this book. But when Sienna's capo, I can't remember what mafia they are from, when the capo asked Sienna to marry Drago and kind of be a spy and like learn Drago's like things and like information, she says yes because she needs a job. She's really smart. She can pick up languages like this, and people think that she's very quirky and that she isn't smart because of the way that she dresses and kind of like acts, but Drago sees right through that. He sees right through that, and I really enjoyed that. Drago was actually in an accident, and he has hearing loss in one ear, and I love how we see that and how that can affect the hero's life, how the heroine kind of picks up on that. I just overall really loved the relationship. I believed in the relationship. I think I overall just really loved Sienna, and I just really loved how Drago loved Sienna for exactly who she was and could see through her mask. Overall, it was really cute. It was really spicy. I really enjoyed it. I'm not sure why I didn't give it 5 stars. There was something missing, but now I can't really pinpoint what it was. It might have been like maybe the heroine's reluctance to like fully fall in love or be in love. That whole situation stems from trauma, which was understandable, but I think it might have dragged a little bit too long for me. But overall, I really loved this one. I think this is the second one in this entire series that I've given a 4-star to, so it is one of my faves. Then after that, I ended up reading King of Greed by Anna Huang. This was a very highly anticipated read for me. I will say it did not disappoint, but it also didn't quite meet that 5-star feel for me. So I ended up giving it 4.5 stars, but I'm running it down to a 4 stars because I really did love this book. We have our hero Dominic and our heroine Alessandra. So Dominic and Alessandra have been married for 10+ years. They originally meet, I believe, in college when our hero needs a tutor, and Alessandra is that tutor, and they kind of just form this like friendship first, and then when the tutoring ends, Dominic asks her out. So I love how we had gotten a little bit of past to present because we got to see how the relationship started and where that base of the relationship was, and I really appreciated seeing that. Again, I just love how much Dominic loved Alessandra, and so we have this scene where Alessandra had reminded Dominic about their 10th year anniversary, and he ends up missing it because of work, and this is kind of like Alessandra's final straw, and she ends up leaving and sends Dominic divorce papers. And once this this happens, Dominic instantly is like, absolutely not, you're my wife, we're gonna fix this, I'm not leaving you, which like, period, this is what I wanted, right? But then he signs the divorce papers, and then we kind of just get little moments between them, and like we see Dominic and how he's struggling, and we also see like Dominic taking the steps to continue to be in Alessandra's life, and we do see Alessandra like building her own life and like her being able to stand on her own 2 feet, which I really loved, because I did want her to grow into herself and find herself and not just be Dominic's wife, if you know what I mean. I really loved seeing Dominic realize this and see him change his ways for Alessandra. And so I loved all of that, and I just loved the hurt and the angst. But I will say, I think that there should have been a little bit more groveling. There should have been more like Dominic on his knees. Like, I don't know, like he like did stuff, like he did grovel because he like showed in his actions that he was willing to change, but like it wasn't anything like emotional or like gut wrenching, you know what I mean? Like I wanted to feel that shit in my chest, and I feel like I didn't. And so that's just the me thing. Apparently at this point, I think there really wasn't anything wrong with this book. I also didn't really like how Alessandra really tried to get over Dominic and like go on other dates and not like be physical with other men, but like she did go on other dates. And I will say though, like it was just the perfect opportunity to show Dominic being jealous, but there was like some parts where like I felt like Alessandra was just doing that to be cruel, and how much it hurt Dominic hurt me. And so I don't know, like I loved it so much because I do love me a Marriage in Trouble, and like I love both of these characters. It just didn't hit the way that I thought it was going to hit, so it just like didn't meet my 5-star expectation. But that's not to say that it was a bad book, because it wasn't a bad book. I truly did love it, and I still think that you guys should read it. I do think that, I mean, I haven't read King of Wrath in so long, but I mean, I feel like they're kind of even on the scale of favorites, you know what I mean? Because King of Wrath, King of Greed, you know, they're top, and then King of Pride was just like not it for me. It was like a 3-star. So overall, I'm loving this series more than the Twisted series, I think. So it was really good. Moving on, because I feel like I talked about that one for quite a bit. I ended up reading The Demon's Bargain by Katie Robert. I ended up DNFing it at 50%, so I gave it a 2-star. I just didn't care. So let's move on. After that, I picked up Watch Your Mouth by Candy Steiner. I gave this one 5 stars. This one was like so good. It was honestly perfection, because there was like nothing wrong with it. I will say it's not a book, it's not like a 6-star read, but it is a 5-star read because Jackson and Grace were just something else. I will say though, maybe it's more like a 4.5, rounding it up to a 5, because there was like just one thing that I really didn't like, and it had to do with the heroine. But let's do a little backtrack. So Jackson and Grace first kind of meet and talk to each other when they are on this like tour bus to go out to the clubs to celebrate a hockey win. This is a hockey romance. This is a brother's best friend romance. This is an age gap romance, forbidden romance, all of the good things. And it is also a road trip romance. Grace's brother basically assigns Jackson to like look out for Grace on this night out that they're going clubbing, and this clubbing scene had me in a chokehold when they were dancing on the dance floor. The way that Grace is, like, I loved her because she's such a tease, but she's so good. We have this moment where they meet, right? And they have like this explosive night together. Their chemistry is off the charts, but like they kind of don't really see each other after that because Grace is currently in a relationship at that time. And so fast forward, I don't know how long, but they're all at, I want to say Mitch. Mitch is not his name. I know the heroine's name in the first book is Maven, but I can't remember the guy's name. Anyways, they are at Maven's house, and Grace ends up pulling up, and she's like completely sad. She's been crying. She tells everybody that her mans and her are no longer together, and Jackson so happens to be there because he is Grace's brother's best friend. Jackson can't let this slide. He does not like the fact that Grace is crying and it's sad, so he takes his opportunity. He goes upstairs and he talks to Grace, and he's like, what can I do for you? Like, what do you need at this time? Like, what can I do? And she is like, I need an adventure. And so he takes her on an adventure and they go on this road trip that nobody knows. They're keeping it on the down low, but on this road trip they do so many fun things, and I just love that. I don't know if I love road trip romances, but I love this one because I loved the fact that they were like able to stop and do like outdoorsy things, and how they got to know each other, and just their banter and conversation back and forth was just so good. They kind of just go on this road trip and they try to fight their attraction together, and Jackson is really trying to be like the bigger man and not be that guy. It did get annoying, his repetitiveness with the 3 reasons why he couldn't be with her, but eventually obviously he gives in. The spice in this book, phenomenal. So good. Some of the scenes live rent free in my head. It was just so good. And I just enjoyed every aspect of this book. I will say at some points, Grace's personality seemed a little bit childish to me. But again, I loved how Jackson could see right through Grace's facade and how much they were able to connect. And I just loved Grace's memory keeping, where she takes like videos. It was just so fun. Like I could totally picture it in my head, and I was like, that is just so cool. And I just overall really loved their relationship. The 3rd act breakup was, I think, handled really well. I honestly didn't think that this was going to be the 3rd act breakup, but I enjoyed the fact that the 3rd act breakup didn't happen where like your typical brother finds out. Like that wasn't the sole thing. I mean, it was, but it happened in a way that it shouldn't have happened, and so I like that it was different in that way. But I also loved how it was handled and how they were able to communicate, even though Grace's brother was hella mad, and he did have a right to be. But overall, loved it. It was so good. 4.5 stars, rounding it up to a 5. Next, I ended up reading Stray by Daisy Jane. This one I gave 3.5 stars to, rounded it up to a 3. So I rounded it down to a 3. I think. Did I? I think I did. We have our hero, Brian, but his friends and everyone calls him Bran because he lost an eye. He does not have an eye. He uses a patch, and his friends thought that if he lost his eye, then his name should lose the eye as well. It's funny. His friends are like jokesters like that. Like they have a thing about nicknames. So like he goes by Bran. And then we have our heroine, Elsie, and we have a single mom. This is a reverse dom sub relationship. So we have our hero. He is struggling like mentally because he doesn't have an eye, and he's just struggling in the dating world. He just doesn't feel like he can be in a relationship because there's nobody willing to accept him for him and the fact that he doesn't have an eye. It was really sad seeing the way that people treated him in this book, but I think that it was an important part of the story because once Stray, that is his dom sub role name, Elsie is the dom and she calls him Stray, and Bran is the submissive and calls our heroine Goddess. That was a little corny, but like I could live through it. This is a really long book. This is definitely character driven. There's not a lot of plot going on. There is Grey's Anatomy references. It was cringy and corny. Give it like a 70% of the time. So do with that what you will. But the spice was really good. And I really like overall just really enjoyed the parts where Bran and Elsie were together. I loved seeing Bran open up and be vulnerable with Elsie. And I loved how Elsie could see to the heart of Bran, and that just because he doesn't have an eye doesn't lessen his worth. And so I loved the message behind all of that. And I loved how supportive his friend group was and how supportive his sister was. I loved the whole scene where Bran meets Elsie's daughter. I thought that was really cute, and he has a really lazy stoned dog. And it was fun in moments. It was hot in others. It was emotional in others, but sometimes it was a little corny. Again, very, very character driven. So if you don't really like that and you need actual plot in your books, this series is not for you. But overall, I really enjoyed it, so I gave it a 3.5 stars. After that, I ended up reading Slammed by the Minotaur by Sam King. I actually got this rec from Lacey Book Lover. She read this and I was like, instantly I'm gonna read it. It's a Minotaur spicy novella. I gave it 3 stars. I enjoyed it for what it was. We have our heroine who is actually currently like going into prison because her ex was a cop, and her ex like lied and tampered with evidence and said that she like had tried to kill him. him, but really our heroine is in a very abusive mentally and physical relationship. So she's going into prison, and we have our hero who is like one of the prison guards, and he's a minotaur, and they instantly have this automatic like chemistry and attraction towards each other, and it's very, very smutty. But then we have our hero, and he kind of helps our heroine get out of prison, and then shit goes down at the end with the egg, and it was overall a very entertaining time. I didn't hate it, but I also didn't love it, so it's very average. It was fun. A fun monster minotaur romance. After that, I ended up picking up Mantras and Minotaurs by Ashley Bennett, another minotaur romance. This one I gave 3.5 stars to. I think I rated this one up to 4 stars, I believe. We have our hero Alistair, which is a minotaur, and our heroine Pam. This is a older couple romance, and so we have Pam, which is the mom of the hero in book 2 and the mom of the heroine in book 1. Her deceased husband was not the best husband. Like, that relationship was like straight out of high school, and like, you know, those type of relationships. And now she's like ready to go out dating because both her kids are out living their own lives, got their own little families, and she's like, you know what, I'm ready to see. And so her daughter convinces her to get on this dating app, and we have our hero Alistair. He is a minotaur, and he is on this dating app. They end up swiping right on each other. Is that how you do dating apps? Swipe right? Yeah, I mean, it sounds right. He is actually leaving the next day to go back to Colorado because he is actually the owner of a cannabis company, which I thought was so different and just so cool. Like, I've never read that before in a romance, and I loved that whole like representation of that. And he's basically filthy rich, billionaire romance. He lives in a really cool house in Colorado. He got money. Okay, he got money. So because he's leaving the next day, they end up like, obviously they know he's leaving the next day, but they still go on this date. They have this instant connection. They're like easy conversation. They go like to a coffee shop, and they don't want it to end there, so they go ice skating, which was, you know, different, and I really enjoyed it. It gives the winter vibes. Okay, if you're looking for a wintry December book to read, I feel like this one's good. I know the cover doesn't give that, but what's happening in the book does. They go ice skating, they go back to Pam's house, they have a little freaky deaky time, and then he has to go. They kind of do this long distance relationship, and this was a lot spicier than I thought it was gonna get, but I overall really enjoyed it. It was fun. It was a really fun read, and I had so many cool and different aspects that I've never read before in a romance book, so I gave it 3.5 stars. After that, I read The Stone and the Star by Gillian Graves. I gave this one 4 stars. I really loved it. We have our hero Colossus and our heroine Astra. So Astra is a teacher or a student. She might not be either. She just might be a person who builds statues or like does pottery, something like that. And then we have our hero. He is a gargoyle, and he literally is on this building. He doesn't really know where he came from. He has like this sort of memory loss, but he can see directly into Astra's apartment, and he has been like stalking her, pining after her since he's seen her. Ever since Astra, our heroine, had seen this gargoyle, he looks like a statue. She thinks he's a statue. So she has like fantasized about this statue, so she ends up self-pleasuring herself in front of her window to the gargoyle. And so our hero is like, oh, she's like, you know, mating call. And he's like totally ready to dive in there, you know? And so after she does that, the next day he saves her from almost being essayed. She realizes that monsters exist, and she like runs away like scared, and then she can't stop thinking about her hero, so she tries to get his attention, but he's like, nah, because you didn't want to be with me in the beginning. So she like self-pleasures herself again, and she's like tempting him until he finally gives in, and then they kind of just have all this spicy steamy time, and then they form this relationship. And I really liked how after all this spicy steamy time and then like decide to be together, we get a little bit more of them afterward, so it doesn't like exactly end right away. I really enjoyed it. I loved our hero and I loved our heroine, and I'm excited to see more from this series. Then last book that I read in the month of November November was Cup of Joe by Annabeth Albert. So I had previously read, I believe, maybe the second or third book in this series. I believe every book in the series is an romance, and so I decided to go back and start at the beginning of this novella series. I wanted to reread that or like retry that series to see if I wanted to continue the series. And so the first book in the series, Cup of Joe, gave it 3 stars. I really enjoyed it. There were just a couple of things that I just didn't really like about it, so it wasn't a higher rating. Will I continue the series? I believe so. Once I want like a little bit more of an novella book, I'll probably go back to the series and continue. So we have our hero Levi. He is actually in college, but he comes back to this town and he's working at this coffee shop, which is the whole basis around this whole series. It's this coffee shop. And then we have our other hero named Joe. So obviously Cup of Joe, how cute is that? I love the wordplay in this series. And so Joe, I believe he's like an electrician. So he's this big, burly, big boy of a man, okay? He's very handiwork. And then we have Levi. He's a little bit more slim. He's a little bit more shy. They meet at this coffee shop because Levi is working here because he came to this town because he had been in a previous relationship that kind of went south and he kind of didn't want to go back home with his tail tucked between his legs, and so he decides to stay there and make the most of his summer. Joe comes in for his coffee every day and he sees that Levi is flustered. He's new, and so to make it easier on Levi, Joe says that he'll just take black coffee. So every time after that Joe comes into the coffee shop, Levi gives him black coffee. He's like, oh, here, you know, ready for you. But then one of Levi's co-workers, I believe his name is Blake, he says that's not Joe's order. Joe usually orders this frappuccino with fucking whipped cream and like caramel and all this stuff, like a sweet drink. And Levi is just like so embarrassed, and Joe is this very dominant man. So the side thing about this series is that this coffee shop is also a very open, not a sex club, but it's like a coffee shop that you can go and know that other like-minded people go to interact with, like people who have like kinks or something. I'm not doing a very good job of explaining this. So Joe ends up being a dominant and Levi is a submissive, and I just loved seeing their interactions and how they communicated their relationship and what they were into. I did like seeing Joe's reluctance to Levi because Levi is just so in it. He's like, oh, like Joe is perfect, all this stuff, and it's not very insta-lovey because they know that this can't be anything more than like a sexual relationship because Levi will be leaving at the end of the summer. But yeah, I really enjoyed their relationship. I loved their relationship dynamic. Their banter was really cute. Joe was just so attentive and loving to Levi and just could read Levi and see and predict what Levi would need. And I just love seeing that in a hero, how he picks up and he cares about Levi's emotions and it's like his little cues. So overall, I really enjoyed it. It was a fun, spicy read as well. Not as spicy as you would think. I believe they like go full on like one time, but like they do other stuff prior to that. If you're looking for an novella series, I'd say give this one a shot. Those were all of the books that I read in the last half of November. This was a little bit of a long video. I hope you guys stuck around. If you did, leave me your favorite book that you read in November, and if you don't want to comment any of that, then go ahead and leave me a coffee emoji down below in the comments. And again, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye guys.